This video was recorded in 2018. I'm fighting a boss called Slave Knight Gale, the hardest boss in Dark Souls 3. Normally, you'd be around level 100 by this stage of the game, but I'm only level 1. The community calls this a Soul Level 1 run, where you try to beat the game without leveling up your character at all. Your stats are so low that you can't use any high damaging weapons, but more importantly, you have so little health that a single attack from most bosses will kill you. So why would I want to do this to myself? According to psychoanalyst Jacques Lacan, desire isn't really about getting what you want, it's more about the chase itself. He says that the root of all desire is a fundamental incompleteness within each person, what he calls a lack of being, or a want to be. This lack makes us desire things, hoping that that'll be the thing to make us whole. But once we have them, they stop being desirable, and our desire finds a new target to repeat the cycle. 2018 for me was a gap year after completing high school, but before I had any real idea of what I wanted to do next. I was working two incredibly boring jobs, a call centre and a grocery store cashier. My work wasn't bringing me any skills I would need in the future, it wasn't a path towards a career or even something I enjoyed doing. I felt stuck in the limbo of being officially an adult, but with nothing to show for it. You could say that I was lacking confidence in my own capabilities, so I desired something challenging that relied on my niche skills and couldn't be credited to anything but my own ability. But for some reason, replaying Dark Souls 3 couldn't scratch that itch. Bosses that were once roadblocks would die on the first attempt, but it felt hollow. While beating the boss was the object that I desired, the reason I desired that in the first place was actually for the challenge that boss represented in my mind. This is the difference between the objects you desire and the objet petit a, the object cause of your desire. Your objet petit a is like an idealized fantasy of how getting what you desire should feel. That's the reason why fulfilling your desire is often disappointing. Our fantasies are unattainable. It's impossible for reality to ever live up to those expectations. And so I sought out more challenging ways to play Dark Souls 3, eventually landing on the Soul Level 1 run. Somehow, the frustration of it made me less likely to give up. My heart would pound in my ears and I imagined what victory must feel like. By artificially increasing the difficulty of each boss, I was able to remain close to what I desired without being able to easily attain it. But that's it. That's my reaction to finally beating the game at level 1. The culmination of 1,000 deaths and months of grinding is a vaguely relieved grunt. As Zizek puts it, when confronting what you desire, more satisfaction is provided by dancing around it than by making straight for it. A major part of what I love about Dark Souls 3 is how challenge is constructed. In most cases, your knowledge of how to fight a boss is more of a limiting factor than your execution. Nowhere is this more apparent than in Soul Level 1 runs. Most bosses feel completely impenetrable on your first attempt, but over the course of many deaths, you gradually learn more and more until finally something clicks in your brain. You become so familiar with each boss that you recognize their tells. Tiny changes in their animations that indicate a certain attack, letting you dodge them sooner or set up to punish them. You realize that you're reacting to things before you've even consciously registered them. This is called embodiment, the sensation where something has become so natural to use that it feels like an extension of your own body. Evidence shows that embodiment increases as players become more skilled. In truly challenging duels, boss fights have moments that feel more like a dance between partners. There's a push and pull of both of you influencing each other's actions. This aligns perfectly with how Reeves and colleagues describe expertise, choreographing yourself in a way that doesn't focus on individual actions, but instead the symphony of combined complex activity. As a result, the moment-to-moment gameplay of boss fights in Dark Souls 3 feels incredibly rewarding, even when the fights aren't going your way. One particular boss, I remember being stuck on for weeks. I looked up guides, changed my weapon, burnt through my consumables, and still felt no closer to beating him. As part of this video essay, I returned to Dark Souls 3 for the first time since 2018 to capture footage. I figured I'd play at Soul Level 1 until I encountered a boss that gave me a good challenge. Eventually, I found myself back at the Nameless King's fog door. Part of me was nervous. What if I'm not good enough to pull it off a second time all these years later? He dies on my second attempt, and I feel nothing compared to last time. Nearly a decade down the line, and the weeks I spent dancing with the Nameless King are still embedded somewhere in my mind. Despite all the time that's passed, those memories still curse me to never relive the experience that made those weeks so meaningful in the first place. And so, my desire shifts, and the cycle begins again.